And today is the 5th of December, lunchtime here, and we're going to focus a little bit on what have happened during 2023, but more of what are the 2024 website optimization trends that we are foreseeing, or maybe we are guessing that they're going to happen, and we're going to base our assumption on the snapshot of the website data and metrics that we from Monsido have pulled out from our data, from our customers, and the aggregate scores for that. And just casually going through the housekeeping rules, we encourage you to use the chat, no matter if it's like a questions for different website topic that we are not discussing today. Make sure that you are using the chat to keep the discussion going and just add your questions along the way. We will try to keep them for the end of the session. Sometimes we are answering them on the go if we manage to. And of course, Zoom is providing live transcriptions. They probably are available on your screen. If you want to remove them or add them, you are welcome to activate them. Also, the recording that we are doing right now, the recording of this webinar will have closed captioning with more edited subtitles or transcription. And we will send you the recording and the slides of this presentation within a few days. You should be in your inbox. As well as we also posted on our webinar channel on YouTube. So if you're not following us on YouTube, make sure you find Monsido and subscribe, because you will also receive a notification once the webinar is uploaded. And of course, sometimes we put these webinars at 30 minutes. We're trying to speeding up as much as we can. And sometimes we are not able to answer all the questions needed. If such thing happens, we will provide an email with the follow-up answers for those questions. And stepping into today's speakers, you probably already know us if you have joined one of our webinars before. My name is Graciela Jalova, and I'm taking part of the International Monsido marketing team as a revenue marketing manager. I've been working in many different setups in marketing, where I have also the chance to put myself in a lot of webinar building, website building, optimizing. So a lot of those things sharing today, I have put my fingers on. So I hope that I can share some insights as well. And my lovely colleague, Jasmine, maybe you can give 2 words for yourself.
Hi, everyone. Jasmine Hansen de Guzman. I am the Director of International Marketing here at Monsido. Also have a strong background in the website world. Used to work for a website builder for small businesses, and very excited to give you guys a little bit of insight into, or at least indicators into what we think you should be focusing on in the next year.
All right. And talking about agenda, what we're going to talk today is, as I told you in the beginning, we're going to show a snapshot of what the website optimization and performance data we could pull from Monsido, from our European and APAC, Jasmine, correct me if I'm wrong, customers. So we aggregate that data in order to find some patterns and some trends to be able to understand what was the focus during 2023 and what this data reveals about the progress and the priorities that have been put in 2023. And of course, based on that, we'll try to highlight what are the insights and the impacts that you should be focusing on your 2024 projects in terms of your website. Maybe optimization, maybe full redesign, maybe like you're starting from scratch, just what you need to bear in mind. And in the end, we'll wrap it up with Q&A. And starting with that, I know we already have a little bit of a icebreaker question, but I'm gonna just start this poll focusing a little bit on what was your primary goal for 23. Was it something like you went through a completely full redesign and you started like you focused the whole year for this web redesign? Sometimes it takes even longer. Maybe you are still going on to continue doing that. Maybe you have focused only on updating and removing this outdated content that, you know, maybe you have something from 2016 that is completely irrelevant to be still standing on your website. Maybe you worked on improving your EX, UX, and user interface design, and to increase your conversion rates on your landing pages, on your top performing pages. Or maybe you worked on improving your traffic sources and expanding this traffic amount, focusing on the Google Lighthouse parameters, maybe like decreasing your bounce rate. Or if it's something completely different and we have not mentioned it in the possible answers, just drop it in the chat and then we can keep it on.
Yeah, and I can
Discussion.
already say that someone commented in the chat that they've had a focus on accessibility this year, and the way they've gone about it is by trying to shift the responsibility to the website authors. So I think that's a great way to do it. There's so many things you can focus on. I know our colleagues in the US, they did a full website redesign this year, and it is a massive undertaking, but really gives you the opportunity to do a lot of these things. So yes, you might be doing a website redesign, but in that process, you also improve accessibility, you update and remove old content, and you improve the UX. So it's not necessarily always one or the other. It can be multiple things.
And meanwhile, I decided to share the results. We see that a lot of you have worked on outdated content, removing and maybe polishing it up. We also do that. It's an ongoing thing every year. An audit of your content should be one of your things that you put on your priority list. And of course, improving the conversion and increasing the conversions. We all working in marketing and website optimization. It's like probably one of our top 3 things to do. Thank you for sharing, and let's keep it on with what was the snapshot of website optimization and performance data that we could pull from our customer base, and what did that reveal? First of all, let's focus on why and what is the reason that we focus on website optimization, and why is it an important subject. Of course, you know that providing a best website experience for your visitor means a variety of things, but most importantly, you should focus on an attractive website design, not always a beautiful, but attractive as long as your visitors are staying and engaging with your content. Also, easy to navigate your website is very important. Complicated website with a lot of navigation tools, sidebars, complicated menus could also confuse a bunch of your users, not only the users who are very knowledgeable and tech savvy, but also the users who just expect to see the home button on the place where the home button usually stays. So providing this natural navigative experience to the websites is very important when we talk website optimization. Also, your content is a king. This is why your visitors are coming to your website. So making sure your content is concise and clear and understandable should be also part of your top 5. Of course, images and videos, they can complement the content, but they could also confuse the whole journey. So making sure that your images and videos that you add on aside your content, or to improve your visualization on your website, could actually complement your content instead of creating a completely different experience. Maybe you are writing a text about something that, we just put decorative image here that actually distracts the reader from the actual important things that you want to mention on that page. Having a high focus on what kind of images are you choosing and what kind of videos, how long and how big those videos are, should also be a big part of your focus. Of course, thinking and looking into your traffic, where your traffic is coming from. Is it coming primarily from desktop devices, computers, PCs, or mobile and tablets? Could also be important for you to look into, understand where should your focus area should be. Do I need to provide a website optimization on my desktop device, or do I need to provide a better experience on mobile and tablet? Tablet experiences are usually primarily, or at least from my experience, I can see seniority users are huge fans of tablets, maybe because the screens is rather larger than the phone screens, but they don't get so stuck into writing on a keyboard and sitting on a computer. So this is like their preferences. So if your organization or service provider is aiming towards seniority of visitors, so maybe checking your tablet experience and not underestimating the value or the power of it is a good idea. And of course, we already mentioned accessibility, but accessibility expands your already wider visitor range to include all kinds of people who use different accessibility devices and different software tools to read websites. And with that being said, maybe Jasmine can also like give a little bit perspective of what is our data and why we decide to pick it up in this way.
Thanks, Graciela, for that awesome introduction as to why this whole topic around why you need to understand all these optimization trends and metrics is so important. So for those of you who aren't familiar with the Monsido platform, what our platform does is it scans websites on a weekly basis or however often you set it up and finds issues and errors. And we scan thousands of domains per year. And we're like, well, that's pretty interesting, because what we could do is get a snapshot of how websites are doing at this point in time. And so what we did is now in late November, we got a snapshot of how websites were doing, got aggregate scores so that we can kind of look at an average of how our website's doing. And of course, websites are living, breathing documents, I like to say, or digital assets. So they do change on a some of you guys probably change your website on a daily basis. So it is really a snapshot, and it isn't to say that this is how the website always is going to perform. Maybe we pull the data at a point in time where the website wasn't doing as well, or where they were doing really well and we just published all the fixes. But the thought was just to give us a little bit of an aggregate overall look at where people are falling specifically in 4 different categories: accessibility, which of course is a very important one; content quality, which it seems like several of you guys have been focusing on this year, so I'm very excited to hear that. But also SEO and performance, just because there are a lot of things that change, both in terms of standards throughout time, but also how much your organization focuses on it throughout the year. I know some organizations, they'll have like a big cleanup at the beginning of the year, and then the content quality kind of goes down throughout the year. Other people, it's on a quarterly cycle, for example, so you'll see little spikes. So we just really wanted to have a look and get a big picture. It's not granular. I think Graciela and I were in preparation for this webinar talking about it, and one thing is to look at the numbers, but what's really interesting is to discuss it, because all of it depends on the context of your organization, your specific website. So we just kind of wanted to use this as like a high-level indicator of like, this is things that if all of our scores are low here or really high, these are areas we should maybe celebrate and or focus on. I will also note that they're aggregate scores, so it might be based on more than one domain, and that also means that you might have one domain that only has 10 pages that scores very high because it's very easy to maintain, but you'll have another 1,000-page website that is very big, has a lot of different content authors, and therefore the quality of that is much more difficult to maintain. So I just wanted to preface it with a little mini methodology and say that it is really just a pointer in which, an indicator in which direction websites are going in as a digital asset, because websites are just slightly more mature compared to other platforms. But let's jump into the 4 different areas that we looked at. And the first one is, of course, quality assurance. So we have a quality assurance module that looks at things like broken links, misspellings, broken link image links as well. And the average score here was 75.14. We normally say 70% is a threshold of that you should aim for in terms of compliance. But I would say overall, this is a pretty decent score. It could, of course, be higher. I think a couple of the things that we identified that are good practices that you might not necessarily already have in here that can increase your score if you're already a Monsido user, and if not, just increase the usability and content quality of your website. But enhancing readability to improve user understanding, I think that is something that is very overlooked. Our module looks at the readability using the Kincaid and Kincaid-Fleisch index. But I know that this is something that's increasingly important, especially in certain countries where maybe you have a large population where they're learning your language as a second language. It's nice to have a simplified version, and there's lots of tools out there to help you kind of test how your sentence structure is being put together. So I know one we use, which I'm not sure if it's available in other languages, but in English at least, it's called the Hemingway app. That's a great one to kind of test how difficult or how easy it is to read your sentences. Ensuring there are no internal and or external broken links. I think internal links are obviously much more easier to manage because you can kind of make sure, oh, oops, we could have planned for that. External links are always a little bit more difficult, but having that kind of cadence in place to make sure that you're not letting them just sit there is probably an important thing. And then even having an overview of where on your website do you have broken links. And then, like so many of you have been doing, regularly updating and refreshing outdated and irrelevant content. Would love to hear how you guys have been doing it. One of the things I normally always suggest to our clients is we also have a policies module, which lets you set up kind of rules, and you can set up rules to find outdated content and then work on refreshing it. So that was quality assurance. And I think the moral of the story here is just that we're doing pretty well, but there's always room for improvement. Awesome. And I see Graziella skipped me over to the next slide, keeping me on track on time. The next thing we looked at is website accessibility. Surprisingly high here as an average. Maybe it is because accessibility is a focus for a lot of people we work with. But 78.7, we do say again that around that 70% threshold is like very, very basic compliance. 80% is really where you're starting to get higher up. I think this is really an area, as I mentioned before, where standards are changing. So we are working to introduce WCAG 2.2, which is a new compliance standard. So this is would be based off of earlier versions. So as that version gets introduced later on, that score could potentially drop. But making sure that you are aware of what your compliance level needs to be and continuously working on it. Some other common issues that we typically see if you haven't started working with accessibility yet at all, and I know some of you are on the call already have, but it's providing alternative text for images. It's a very simple one, but one that people often forget. And then if you're not even sure if your website is accessible, just testing keyboard navigation. Hit tab, can you navigate your website through that? I know one time we had a team member who said, let's do a challenge and just try to navigate websites all day by keyboard. And to be honest, we should be able to. That's the reality for a lot of people. All right, let's jump to the next one, which is search engine optimization. Here we actually scored pretty high, 84.4 on average. I think in general, SEO is something that people have gotten much more aware of. It is something that is just become a best practice in copy and content writing. So optimizing those meta tags and descriptions for targeted keywords. And I think one of the reasons why this score is quite high is also because it drives, if you're a for-profit business, it helps you drive business, helps you drive revenue, right? But even if you're non-for-profit, for example, or public sector, it can help you more easily engage with your residents. If you have, I live in Copenhagen, for example, in Copenhagen municipality, and if I'm able to search Copenhagen municipality trash rules, having that information easily accessible to me because there's good search engine optimization on the page makes it that much easier for me to engage with the municipality I live in. Same goes for not-for-profits. If I'm feeling charitable, it is the holiday season after all, and I want to donate to a local charity for pets or animals, for example. Making sure that you have a strong SEO strategy can make sure that you're actually getting more donations. Other things, of course, developing that robust internal linking strategy. And then I think this goes hand in hand with the content quality. Having good, high quality content always makes a really big difference. And then last but not least, desktop performance. And so this one you can actually see compared to the others is surprisingly low. And we were theorizing about this. So earlier this year in February, Google introduced Lighthouse 10, which was a new way to kind of categorize the performance of websites, and they changed some of the metrics behind it. Mine and Graziella's theory is that is why this is actually so low, because again, changing standards, so you need to change different things to make sure that the performance is operating as high as possible. So that's everything from image sizes, using lazy loading, leveraging browser caching, but also sometimes more technical things like minimizing server response time. But there are a bunch of different things, and we really think that Lighthouse 10 probably has had an impact on this. Again, cannot confirm, this is just our theories, but I'm sure you guys can go in and look on your own websites and see if you did see kind of a drop as Lighthouse 10. And if you haven't tested your website for it yet, we highly recommend that you do. All right, I'll let you jump over, Graciela, because I know we have some other top performers and straggler data as well that we want to take a quick look at.
We're going to keep on talking about what does data have taught us so far, and what do we think that the progress and priority of websites in 23 have showed us. Thinking about what does data indicate in itself, and what is our conclusion based on it. We can see that the major of the websites, as Jasmine shared, are improving their SEO scores, thinking of we all know how to, we probably already follow some checklists that we are getting quite skilled into aligning with the whole team of what do they need to do in order to the website, to the pages that we are publishing to be SEO optimized. So this could be one of the reasons why we are nailing, or our customers are nailing SEO and having such a high score in 2023. And of course, there should be like this different way of understanding the Google Lighthouse 10 metrics. Also, as Jasmine said, before there was a lot of focus on page speed load, and a lot of websites were using parallax, for example, which is affecting a lot the website experience, meaning like you're opening a page, you start reading the text, and suddenly it appears above a banner that takes a bit longer to load and crashes all your experience. This Google was punishing a lot before. So now with the Google Lighthouse 10, probably this will be more focus area that we should stop doing that and focus on optimizing images and optimizing our load speed on a bigger pieces of content. So a lot of significant work will be done, we foresee, on that parameter itself. Also to move the full desktop and mobile experience into the green mark and move the needle about it. We see also in terms of quality assurance and accessibility scores, we see high impact of working with different stakeholders. This collaboration level have improved with the years. We can see that stakeholders are also held accountable when they provide a certain piece of content, that they should follow the accessibility rules and they should follow the standards for the company or for the organization guidelines in terms of quality assurance. Also distributing consistent, updated, and quite clear brand guidelines, style guidelines also helps this high score of accessibility, mainly for quality assurance and as well as accessibility score. So what we see in terms of the top 1, top 10, and low performance scores, don't get scared over here. We based our data on what we could see the aggregate scores are. So what you can see here in the top 1 score is those excellent performers in terms of quality, content quality. Those will be probably some of the domains that they have strongly worked in focusing on content quality, making sure that their readability score is matching their visitors' expectations, and their content have been clearly defined and structured, no broken links, no broken backlinks. And the top 10 is also like not far away from the top. From the top one, we can see that a lot of effort have been put on improving this content. In terms of the low score, we can see like a very sad score, but this could be too many different reasons. This could be because the domains that our tool have scanned are just like the top domains, and the companies are having many more domains in their portfolio in our tool.
I think one of the other things I was going to say, one of the other things we also talked about is like with our scores, especially with content quality, the way it works is if you have maybe just one broken link on your website, but it's on your top 50 pages or something like that, that also significantly impacts the score. So again, just think about this with a grain of salt, because we don't have the context and the story behind each of these websites, but we did just want to take a look and say, hey, content quality, it's interesting. Like many of you said, you have this big span from it being very difficult to maintain, and a lot of you have had a focus on it because of that this year. And then there's people who have very high scores, and that might be because they only have 10 pages, so it's much easier to maintain. Same thing goes for accessibility. We see a lot of new website builders having templates that are more highly accessible, so that's why the lowest score is maybe not as low. And then again, 100% might seem unachievable for you if you have a web page with 3,000 pages, but if you have a smaller 50-page website, it is something that is possible. And we could have just caught the scan on a good day where everything was perfect, and then all of a sudden someone updates it, and the next day it's back down to 80% because it hasn't been updated. So
yeah, but it's quite good to see that we have even the lowest score, the aggregate lower score is closer to this 70% that we are advocating for, that it should be your minimum mark to aim for. And when it comes to SEO and then desktop performance, here again, we can see like the top 10 and the top 1 scores are quite good. And we can see that the top performers, especially we talk already about the SEO, this is, if you look the highest metric, it means like a lot of organizations had a primarily focused optimizing their pages for search engine. And thinking of the lowest score, what could be the reason for that is that not all pages are prioritized for a search engine optimizations. We usually do that on your top performer pages, on your landing pages, on those pages that they bring conversions. So looking at the lower score, this could be the reason that we see such a low score, because not all 1,000 pages on your website are search engine optimized. It's only like a chunk of those that they are important to be. Thinking about the desktop performance lowest score, the top score, mostly of the websites are providing a overall good desktop experience. This is the reason because we are building primarily websites, starting desktop first and then moving to different devices and adapting it. So having desktop performance on the highest scores, it's very natural, but lowest score, our comment to it could be that not all of the pages are as well part of the desktop performance goal. It could be focus for the organization that they are having primarily mobile users and they are not optimizing it for desktop so much. Something to add on, or should I move?
Let's go. I want to be conscious of time. I know we're actually at time, so sorry everyone,
right.
Whoever wants to stay on for 5 extra minutes while we wrap up. But I think at the bottom, if we just sum up, a lot of the things we've already talked about, it is all about having team champions internally and having website managers like yourselves who are really standardizing processes, both educating, auditing, and also doing pre-publish checks, and then aligning across all of the different stakeholders, regardless of what area of it is. And I think some of the key takeaways that I just have for next year as we look into it, can we jump to the next slide, please? It's just that websites are probably the most mature digital asset. Most of us have had websites for our businesses as long as they've been alive. If your organization's been around for a long time, you've probably had one since at least the early 2000s, maybe even the late 90s. But even though they're one of the most mature digital assets, it does not mean necessarily that they're mature when it comes to quality and performance and optimization. And so that's really something that we're going to continue to see being an everlasting focus, really, right? And then with that, additionally, there are changing standards. So just because websites are not a set it and forget it type of thing, it never will be. And I think this is every year a trend, but making sure that you're being proactive about the changing standards that are coming in the upcoming year. And I know with the European Accessibility Act coming in 2025, 2024, I think accessibility is without a doubt going to be a big focus, especially with 2.2 having just come out recently. And then I think as we've seen both from your guys' comments, but also in the data, content and SEO are definitely interlinked and do need to be continuously refreshed. I think Graziella made an excellent point that maybe not all pages need to be SEO optimized. That's totally fair, but even your informational pages do need refreshed and updated content. And I think with that, we'll jump into Q&A because I know we do have a question, but I know Graziella will also launch a poll in the meantime.
Meanwhile, we are reading the questions. So if any of you are interested to get an idea of your website scoring today, getting a 500 pages of your websites could be something that we can provide you with, or understanding your average performance score, just like those we showed. We can also give you an overview of understanding where you're sitting today. For those who are customers, please schedule a training session with your customer success team, but also you can request it over here with us. And let's move into I have a little resource help. I will share those slides with you post the webinar, but I have put a little bunch over here around the website checklist that we have currently, an accessibility checklist, because we know that those are still subject to be discussed in 2024. And jumping into the Q&A, I see a question.
We do have a question, and I actually have the answer to it if you'd like, Graziella.
Go for it. Should I read it first?
Go ahead.
Does the accessibility compliance score also include manual checks, or is it based on issues picked up as part of automated checks as an overall score? This is Ed asking about that.
Awesome. Great question, Ed. So the way our platform works is that users can set their own level of accessibility. So that's not standardized. People have been able to choose between 2.0 or 2.1, for example, or even the draft version of 2.2. When we pulled the aggregated data, what we did is we pulled the confirmed errors. We also pulled, so that part of the score confirmed errors and bugs, but also the review checks. And then what our platform does is it automatically scans, but it does acknowledge the fact that a big part of accessibility does require manual review checks. And our tool kind of helps you manage those as well, so that you know what you need to manually review and check, especially as it's updated and stuff like that. So it does, it did look at all three of those errors. Did I say errors and review checks? And let me just confirm what the last one was. I have it here. But it pulled all of them essentially. So it does include it. Errors, warnings, and review checks. There we go. That was warnings was what I was missing.
Warnings. I going quickly through the chat, but I don't see specific questions that we can ask. Meanwhile, if there is something still you want to ask, thank you for joining today. You can reach out to us on LinkedIn or on our emails or on joining on the next webinar if you have a follow-up question. We were happy to have you joining today, and happy Christmas holidays.
Thank you, everyone. Wishing you a happy winter time.